we have NGKVM config template. Within the NGKVM config template, we added functionality so you could have all the specialties updated to use the new MyPlan. So I'm going to be reviewing within the orders and plan template section. If you look, there's a link on the left that says MyPlan. When this link is checked, which it is currently, launch My Custom Plan. So My Custom Plan is the plan that we're talking about today. It's a new dynamic version of that plan. With this configuration checkbox set, every single specialty would be updated to use the MyPlan. You would not have to go to the foundation template to update your sub-navigation links and your SOAP assessment links to use MyPlan. So today, if I wanted to update in a foundation template the MyPlan template that's used, my SOAP template will never get updated. I'd have to own the SOAP template to change what appears in the bottom of the template, and that might not just be FTS SOAP, that could be another version based on that specialty. So to make the client's navigation to the new MyPlan template easier, you're going to have all your specialties convert. This would be the checkbox to check. If you only want certain specialties to use the MyPlan new formatted template, the My Custom Plan, I would recommend that you uncheck this checkbox and go to the foundation template, setting it up using the sub-navigation links. In the bottom section of the template, the last two options that are available is bypass order module processing. For those of you who are processing labs from the template to the module today, you use a template called order module processing, and that's the template that displays the vendor. I'll open that up in just a moment so you can see, but by having this checkbox selected, you're basically saying the configured items that I have in file maintenance for my vendors are the default, and any provider that places an order in MyPlan, those orders are going to be defaulted to that vendor. And the user on the fly can change the vendor to in-house lab or to be determined if they are not sure based on that payer which vendor to go to. And then the last option is the ability to map a diagnosis to a diagnosis group on the fly. When you use the MyPlan template out of the box, which I'm going to show you so you can see it without the migrated order sets, nothing within the MyPlan template is going to have an existing order set. So if you're using order sets today, you would want to migrate those to the new format so that your diagnosis groups or any custom item that you set up in NGKVM DX framework, which is for your diagnosis group. So it would be anything that you've set up in diagnosis group reference system is converted. When you're talking about MyPlan, everything for the MyPlan diagnosis is configured based on NGKVM custom impression plan. So whatever is in this pick list, when we're talking about mapping of a diagnosis group, we're saying, do we want a user to be able to add or map an existing diagnosis on the fly? So that might be something that you'd have to discuss with your administration team or whoever updates your current diagnoses groups today. These are groups of diagnoses ICD 9 and 10 that are configured with out-of-the-box order sets. So you can use these, they just would need to be converted, and we'll review that conversion in just a moment. So when we pull up our patient in EHR and we place an order, I'm going to show you the MyPlan template off of intake using the sub-navigation. But I want to make sure that, well, I actually did off the SOAP so I can explain the SOAP portion of it. But on the bottom of the assessment and plan template, there is assessment, impression and plan details, and then the ability to launch the MyPlan template. If you don't have the newest configuration setting on NGKVM config, your sub-navigation would get updated, but this bottom portion doesn't get updated until you own the template. So that's what that configuration checkbox does. It overwrites every single link within the system, but you're not going to see that updated in the foundation content. So just know that that checkbox is driving it and not having to do either dual or both. When we talk about, when I was saying you want to bypass order module processing within the MyPlan template. I'm just going to quickly pull up order module processing so you can see what template I'm referring to. This template is what you use to process the orders to the module. With the second checkbox selected, bypass order module processing, this template becomes obsolete. You don't need to use it. It is available for orders if for whatever reason you didn't want them to go directly to the module, but with the setting bypass order module processing, you're going to see this top portion within your MyPlan template. So it's going to display the primary vendor, it's going to display the policy number, and it's going to display the preferred vendor, but I also have available any other vendor that I have provided within my preferred list. So in file maintenance practice preferences, you would have the ability to send it to be determined, which is always going to be a vendor ID of 215. That would allow you to get the order to the module but not send it to the interface. And then the others would be based on my preferred list. If I have no preference in practice preferences, you'll see a much larger list like you do today. Starting at the top of the template, the middle grid is your order types. So what was previously checkboxes based on order types, limited to I think 8 checkboxes underneath of each template, you now have the ability to display an unlimited list of orders. In the top section, you have your assessments. Notice I have nothing selected. In the first run of this template that we demoed last year, we got a lot of feedback that the clients didn't like that it was a pick list, and they didn't like that they couldn't see the previous assessments. So we added the ability to do a diagnostic search, which would allow you to pull up the screen I have open now. You have the ability to display today's assessments, and then you have the ability to pull in clinical problems. As you select an assessment, it'll identify if that diagnosis is associated to a diagnosis group, but notice under my order set, it says no order sets. I know, just from knowing NextGen, that there is an order set for that in the old version of the template, but this is the demonstration without migrating those orders. When you're looking at a diagnosis that does have an order set, for example, I created a few for GERD and for irritable bowel, and then there's a couple other for well-woman exams. So now at this point, when I highlight the diagnosis of GERD, it is associated to an order set. I can tell visually that there is only one order set because the link for GERD is not blue. If the link for GERD was blue, or the diagnosis group was blue, the GERD where it says esophagus, that would mean that that diagnosis is either if it was in the diagnosis group, then it's associated with more than one diagnosis. So the doctor could switch the diagnosis group that their order set is pulled from. If the order set was blue, I could click on the order set and pull up a different order set based on the selected diagnosis. When you have an order set displayed, the orders for that order set are displayed by order type. So when I select on the diagnosis, it displays the orders that are in that order set for lab underneath, and then if the order that I need is not available, I can then select Show All to get the full list. What you're seeing is LabCorp's, because I'm on labs, full list. But if I had a different vendor, such as Quest, then I might have a much shorter list. It's only going to show you the orders that are mapped to that vendor. So you won't have providers placing orders for vendors that they can't see that order. So the list is shortened. You might expect to see more lists, but in this particular case for Quest, for this order set, those are the only associated orders. So we're trying to prevent orders from being placed under multiple lists. And then if you had, for example, to be determined, you would see the full list because this is just pulling the compendium master. That works in both sets for the lab, for the diagnostic, and for the office procedures, or for the lab and the office procedures. You have the ability, if you were, for example, to say show all, and you wanted to find a test that you didn't know how it started or how it was listed. One of my newer favorite features features is that you have the ability to search for something that contains. So if I want to find something that contains a paddock, I can search, type in the description. This works on labs, diagnostics, office procedures. You have the ability to do the search. You also have the ability to add orders with a single click. So currently we're off of the order set. I can queue up orders. When I have an order selected to be placed automatically on a single click, that order is placed into the pending cart view. Notice here you have the vendor for that order, but I could, if I wanted to, update my vendor to be LabCorp and change that, and it would prompt me, do you want to update all orders in your pending cart for that order type to be for this updated vendor that you had correctly selected it, and I could say yes, and then it would update that vendor ID. So at the time that the user is placing the order, they'll be prompted in multiple different ways. They're going to be prompted if there's an AOE to be responded to. They're going to be prompted that that test is not mapped to that particular vendor. The order's not going to go into order underscore because it wasn't correctly configured. It's going to remain in this pending cart view. The diagnostics, let me go back to my order set for a second. For any test that's placed with a particular lab or diagnostic order, if the order has an associated ask at order entry question, then that information would be identified with an asterisk. So for the time that when I place the order, I'll be prompted to respond to those questions. In this order set for diagnostics, I have only one order associated for that vendor. If I go to show all, then I can see my full list of orders, and I can configure and choose to add that order. What we did with diagnostics was a little different. We don't have the ability to do a right-click row select because we wanted to give the user or the provider the opportunity to add comments, site side, orientation, and position. So within the diagnostic order, at the time that you're placing the order, you can add an additional comment. For the provider or the nurse scheduling the order, you can utilize your my phrases, and then when you add that, it'll be added based on the selected vendor. In here, you can notice that this particular test for BMP has an ask at order entry question. I know that because there's an asterisk identified there, but I can also highlight the row and select AOE, or when I place the order into the module, it'll prompt me for that AOE. So you can either row select and answer it. At this point, when I select the diagnostic, or in this case, the lab test, when I select the lab test, it gives me the AOE answers, which are over here on the right. Those are being pulled from file maintenance. And you can respond to those answers, and then that information would be sent to the order module. Your orders are able to be viewed. So the template is long, it's broken out into multiple panels. The bottom section of the template is used to display all orders that are placed for that current encounter. So in the manage orders section, we've gotten feedback from clients that they'd like to see what was placed. They don't place duplicate orders. You have the ability to see that information here. When an order from the bottom is highlighted, any additional comments or applicable details that were added from the top would be displayed, but you also have the ability to say, you know, that you did schedule this, what time was it scheduled. This could be done for multiple templates, but if I was the nurse placing the order and also updating it and I received authorization, I could add that information. When I update that, it could change the status to scheduled. I could also manually change the status to something available from the pick list. So going back up to the top to just review some of the other workflow with the MyPlan instructions and the other functionality of the order type, I'm going to choose a new diagnosis. When I select the diagnosis and highlight, it gives me the ability to choose or display that order set that's available. Notice in the labs list, you have your shortened list based on what you've configured in your order set. Your order set that's available here can be configured in the practice template, but I find that it's much more easier to configure using the runtime template.